This presentation is an introduction to research design. The aim of research is to develop an understanding of some phenomenon. To develop understanding of phenomena, we need to use systematic methods of research to ensure the rigor or validity of our conclusions. Whether this is marketing research, accounting research, management research, whether it's about research understanding how people operate, how organizations operate, or how industries operate, irrespective of the level of understanding we're seeking, we need systematic methods of research to ensure that the conclusions that we draw are valid. Let's take a look at some research. Let's say in the world out there, we theorize that X causes Y. X could be job satisfaction, Y could be job performance. X could be intention to exercise, Y could be the amount of exercise we actually do. So that's our theory. We've developed an hypothesis or a belief that X causes Y. Unknown to us, Y is also influenced by another variable called Z. We don't know about the influence of Z. We haven't theorized it, we haven't observed it as yet, but in the world out there, it operates. So we set up our own study to test our hypothesis that X causes Y. We operationalize big X as little x and big Y as little y. I've used capital letters to indicate X and Y as the constructs that exist out there in the world. There are theoretical constructs. The small letters represent our operationalization of those constructs within our study. Our concern here is how well do those operationalizations map onto our theoretical constructs. In other words, are the operational constructs valid? Have we operationalized them in a valid way? Further within our study, we actually measure X and Y, but we may not get X and Y, but X prime and Y prime. This is because within our study, respondents do not pay attention to some questions, or misunderstand them, misunderstand our instructions. So what we measure or observe, X prime and Y prime, may or may not be what we think we have measured, little x and little y, which in turn may or may not be a good representation of the theoretical constructs we're really interested in, capital X and capital Y. All of this concerns the issue of measurement. Measurement, and in some methods, interventions or manipulations, concern the validity of observations and those interventions. And these, collectively, we might think of as construct validity. Do we have in our study construct validity in our measurement? In other words, are the measures that we've got and how they've actually been used in our study map well onto the theoretical constructs that we believe we are measuring? That is the first basic process of research design, that of measurement or making observations that are valid. The second set of processes in research design that we need to think about is the issue of sampling. Have we sampled well? How well does the sample of participants in our study match those of the population to which we wish to draw a conclusion? In other words, can we generalize the results from our study to the broader population in which the phenomenon occurs? If the phenomenon occurs in one population, say managers, and in our study we sample frontline service staff, then there's not a good representation in our study of the population that we think this phenomenon applies to. So, the second set of processes in research design that we need to take care of is sampling. These concern our statistical inference decision, or the validity of our statistical inferences. There are several other processes that influence statistical validity, the validity of those inferences. We won't cover them here, but the big one is about sampling and can we generalize our results from the participants in our study to the population which we are interested in. We deal with sampling in Module 3. The third set of process issues we need to deal with are those of what you might call design. Does the overall design allow us to draw a correct inference or explanation about the relationship between X and Y? That's capital X and capital Y. Have we chosen a method that allows us to isolate whether or not X causes Y? If we have good measurement and good sampling, are the methods we're using satisfactory so that we can claim X causes Y? To isolate causes, we probably need an experiment. If we use a survey method, we could use, say, a questionnaire or interview-based techniques. We therefore just observe or measure X and Y and we see what the relationship is. Maybe we could use a case study. These other methods, do they allow us to make a judgment or an inference about cause and effect? Are rival explanations and variables controlled? This is an issue of internal validity. Now, sometimes we're not interested so much in internal validity, or our research explicitly does not aim to control for this, for various reasons, but sometimes it is paramount. Different methods, such as experiments, surveys, interviews, case studies, deal with this issue of causation and explanations quite differently. We deal with some of these methods in modules 4, 5, 7, and 8. Now, remember that in the real world out there, Z also affects Y. In our method that we've chosen, have we controlled for the effect of Z? Was it included in our study? How was it included? Could we have detected it? These are issues of research design that depend on the combination of measurement, sampling, and the methods chosen. Our aim, remember, of research is to develop understanding of phenomena. To develop that understanding requires undertaking systematic methods of research to ensure rigor or validity in the conclusions we make about the world. We are rarely interested in the research setting in and of itself. That is sometimes the case, for example, in case study research, and some qualitative research is interested in the specific participants. But most academic research, quantitative and qualitative oriented research, is interested in explaining broader phenomena than just what happens in your specific research study. We want to generalize our findings to the world out there, to worldly phenomena. In research, this rigor, this ability to generalize our conclusions, that's our ability to generalize our conclusions, is met by being systematic in measurement and observations and their relationship to the constructs we want to measure. And we deal with that issue of measurement in Module 2. We need to be systematic in sampling and our sample relationship to the population to which we wish to generalize. And we deal with sampling in Module 3. And from these two basic elements, these two fundamental elements of research design, together all research designs are created including choices about what variables to measure or observe, how we measure and observe them, and importantly, when we measure or observe them. And by that I mean, do we do it once or do we twice or 3 times? We make choices about what populations are of interest to our research questions. That's about the sampling issues. We make choices about what interventions to undertake to identify causality, to isolate causes, how we undertake those interventions and when we do, and choices about how much control of extraneous influences are needed or even possible. Can we do an intervention? Can we control rival hypotheses? Can we control rival explanations? Or if we cannot, how do we take them into consideration? How could we have got Z into our study? And these are choices of method. Experimental design, survey design, case study, interviews, focus groups, whatever the method that we choose to use. Collectively, all of these processes we use to undertake data observation and collection make up research design, and we place them into specific methods in modules 4, 5, 7, and 8. So design, research design, it's an ill-defined term that refers to the detailed plan to undertake research to answer, hopefully, appropriately defined research questions. Design requires the overlapping choices of how to control competing explanations, as I've said, the experimental approaches, observational approaches such as surveys of new or existing data, what variables to measure and observe, how and when, or what interventions to undertake, how and when, such as experimental approaches, what samples to use and their relationship with the populations, how many in the sample, when we sample, once or repeatedly, plus how participants are contacted, recruited, and the processes used to take measurements. All of that together is research design. While every research study has a unique design, there are several main types of design or methods. Experimental methods aim for strong control over competing explanations. Experimental designs are the best way for ruling out competing explanations. We deal with experiments in Module 4. Experimental design, however, is limited in its applicability. There are many times for many types of research questions for many phenomena that we can't actually use an experiment, so we need to use observational methods. In quantitative methods, the main observational designs are survey designs or questionnaire-based designs and the collection of archival quantitative data. For example, you might collect the number of credits that visual effects firms have. How many films have they worked on? In qualitative methods, the research designs are not well defined, but are usually observational and include survey, arguably the most common and certainly within business, and by survey I mean interviewing participants or using focus groups, for example. Case study, which is the second most common method, arguably. The use of grounded theory, a specific research design with some very specific steps one needs to take. Grounded theory is a method often claimed by researchers, but it's much less rarely performed. Another common research design for qualitative methods are ethnographic type studies, based mainly on non-interventionist observation. The primary techniques within ethnographic studies are observation, systematic observation. The last common qualitative research design used are archival or historically based methods based on existing written materials, for example, the analysis of annual reports. Now, these methods overlap. They aren't discrete. In the first three methods, survey, case study, and grounded theory, they all rely heavily on interviews or focus groups, but they are put together in different ways to produce different designs. In the remainder of this unit, we look at the main methodologies used in business research: experiments, quantitative surveys, qualitative surveys through focus groups or interviews, and case study. This looks like a short list of methods, and it is, but the purpose is to familiarize you with a number of core methods to unpack the methodological issues within them. There are many permutations within each of these methods. We will unpack some of the main issues within each. So within this unit, we start by looking at issues of measurement and observation, and then issues of sampling. These are the two fundamental issues within research design. They impact on all research, qualitative and quantitative. We then look at the main methodologies used in business research. As I have said, these will be experiments, quantitative surveys, qualitative surveys, and case study.